This is Cadillac Unscripted on 107.9 CDY. It's a half hour of local chat, and we are going to have a fascinating conversation here this morning. We have, I'm sorry, Katy, your title besides host of Cadillac Unscripted in your regular life is?
My big real job is I'm a senior loan officer.
You're a senior loan officer.
That's right.
And we have a owner broker here.
Yes.
Of ReMax Central. Marianne Quist is here, and we're going to have a conversation about the market. And this is going to be, you are going to be like a fly on the wall in the discussion between two ends of the housing spectrum when it comes to clients.
Right.
So I'm going to let you guys go, and I'm going to hop out because this is going to be fascinating without me.
You sure you don't want to, offer up some personal opinions on the market, Rich?
Well, let's see. I've owned my home for 12 years, and I think I'm stuck there based on the pricing right now.
Well, you could get
maybe not.
Yeah, you're talking to the right lady. I can tell you that.
I got
Anyway,
you.
welcome, Marianne. Thank you so much for carving some time out for us this morning. Tell us what's going on. Everyone is wondering when more houses are going to become available.
Well, I'm sure you have heard it's crazy out there more
Yes.
times than you can count.
Right.
And that is pretty much what we're all saying.
Okay.
And sure, we don't have that crystal ball, but right now, it doesn't look like there's any end in sight of what
Okay.
we're seeing. The spring market is coming.
Right.
And typically that means more homes.
Right.
We don't know about this year.
Okay. So do you think that people list in the spring because they don't want to go trudging through the snow to look at houses? They don't want people trudging through the snow and coming into their homes. It's cold. Or is it that they want the spring to get their house ready?
I think that has a lot to do with it,
Okay.
Katie. The springtime's a great time to, spruce up the yard, do a lot of deep clean, that kind of thing. But I will say that from everything that I've read and heard other people talking, lots of scoop out there with the other realtors, is that people that really need a house, they have looked all year.
my
It wasn't
goodness.
just spring. Obviously they're hoping more homes come on
Right.
because you know what we're up against with the low inventory.
I know it. So you're married to someone who's a realtor and a builder. Tell us about what's happening on the construction front. We know labor and material costs are high. So how's that impacting new construction from your perspective?
Well, we are still seeing some new construction.
Okay.
People really got to have things set up to do that because of the high costs. And maybe even, I will say we got ours because, my husband built ours.
Right.
And we happened to get in right before COVID and the prices really went high. But we are still seeing some new construction. I have just been talking recently to a builder who's planning to put out some spec homes on some
Wonderful.
5-acre parcels. So, and quite honestly, I think they'll be okay because they've owned the land for a long time and they've got a simple but cute plan.
Right.
And we know with the lack of houses, anything that comes on right now is selling.
Isn't that crazy? Your buyers, are they getting frustrated?
Very much so.
Okay.
I personally, and I hear it with the other agents in my office, some of these buyers, they've written 20 offers.
Isn't that something?
And some, like I say, there's been a few that have backed off and said, I'm going to wait.
Mm-hmm.
But only to come back around a few months later and say, we just really need to move.
Mm-hmm.
So they continue their search. And so as realtors, we've had to learn a lot of different ways to try to get our buyers an edge up
Right.
on their offer. So there's some interesting things being put in the purchase agreements that we didn't do around here before.
Okay, can we talk about that? So multiple offers are coming in on the same house. How, if you're a buyer, cash is king, right?
Cash is king.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. But so what else can your buyer or can a buyer do to be the preferred offer?
One thing that's really huge is you need a lender that knows what they're doing. agents want to see offers on their listings from a local lender.
Okay.
And, I mean, I hate when somebody has a relationship with somebody else to poo-poo their lender.
Right.
But, when we don't know the person or their reputation and we can't feel like we can reach out to them, that's, a little bit of an uneasy feeling, especially if you have competing offers
Right.
that are very close. We're going to say, hey, well, we're going to tell our seller, well, we know this lender, she'll get the job done, or he'll make it happen.
Right.
But if it's somebody from another state or from, 4 hours away, that question can be in our mind.
I'm smiling because I had actually someone who's on your team say to me, I call it the sit on your desk factor. And I chuckled. I said, what does that mean? And she said, well, I told one of our buyers that, I'd like to use somebody local because if I need answers, I can go sit on their desk until I get an answer. if they were...
That is a good way to approach it. And that I might use that in the future, actually. But, I feel bad sometimes for buyers when they feel they're all set.
Right.
But if they are going to ask me, what can I do? That's one thing that they can do. There's some other creative things that are happening out there. I mean, you've probably seen plenty of escalation clauses.
Right.
And some people will say, what is that? Because 3 years ago, they were not being used here.
I know it. Can you explain to our listeners what that is?
Sure. Your buyer may want to offer, we'll say $200,000. That may even already be over the list price, but then they may say, well, I'm willing to go higher than that, but I don't want to go, okay, well, we know where you want to stop. So let's put in an escalation clause that basically states, I'm willing to pay up to $2,500 over the highest offer that the seller receives, up to $225, or, put in a limit or a cap on it.
Isn't that something? You're seeing that.
Oh, yes. And then we have our appraisal gaps. And that's something where, and we've had numerous of these come through lately. I think one of the ones that I just seen was a house that was listed for $229. The buyers, I think there must have been 10 offers. One of the highest ones was at $275.
No kidding.
And a full appraisal gap. So they're stating if, that means if the home only appraises for, let's say, $250, they're going to make up the difference from the $250 to the $275.
Isn't that amazing?
So, yeah, in your mind, you're thinking, okay, this is kind of risky.
Absolutely.
But it's where we're at to get a house in some cases.
Incredible. Question for you, because you've been doing this for over 20 years now. Are we at an all-time high? And as homeowners, should we be concerned? I mean, everyone's excited right now to be a homeowner because everybody's thinking, okay, this is awesome. My home's worth more than I ever dreamed it could be. But will value stay here?
Oh, well, everything that I see and everything I've read, I mean, they're saying, I mean, my initial thought was with inflation and some of that kind of stuff, the rise of interest rates and whatever, that we're going to start seeing, prices fall. And they actually say that homeownership actually hedges inflation.
Interesting.
Which I found was interesting too. So they said we could yet see another 5% increase throughout this year.
Wow.
Beyond that, I mean, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of factors in that. I mean, people are looking at, gas prices and war and all the other things going on in the world. But we're still seeing increases this year. So it's still a great time to put your house on the market.
It is.
And we do remind people that, yeah, you're going to pay more for a home. But if you have one to sell, you're going to even out because you're going to make a lot more on your home too.
Exactly. My concern, and of course with my background as a lender, is rates are climbing quite quickly. And so folks that we pre-approved at 3.5, 2 months ago, interest rates are up over a full percentage point over that. That impacts payments. That
will bring what they can afford down.
Sure.
And I think that was one thing that many of us have asked in this crazy market is, why are our prices going so high? And one of the factors was those low interest rates.
Sure.
Because people can afford more of a payment.
Absolutely.
So we may see that part, start to level off. But, yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, when I think what I just read was an estimated of 5.8 million less of an inventory than we normally have. 5.8 million is huge.
Right.
So with the low inventory, even with this other stuff happening, we're still going to see things, rising. Because people are fighting over them.
I know it. One thing that I've been thinking about is if someone's currently locked, let's say they timed the bottom and they refinance, let's say in the low 3s or something like that. Are they really going to want to leave that rate if they need a mortgage on the next house, right? For, let's say, 5%. That's hard to do once you've had a taste of a really low rate, And so that's been in my mind too, how that's going to influence things.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that will impact some of the buyers. I think what I've noticed in my own pool of buyers is a lot of new to the market buyers. And a lot of young people that have gotten out of school or graduated college or whatever, and they're don't want to move back in with mom and dad.
Right. And rentals are scarce too.
They are, and you're still can afford a better house payment than a rent payment a lot of times. So I mean, I will say a lot of them, they're not necessarily scared at looking at that interest rate because they haven't been there before.
Right. Right.
So
question, I mean, we call it buyer fatigue, these poor folks that are making, offers on 20 different houses. And when they, and I'm writing pre-approval letters on multiple addresses and I'm kind of going, how's it going? For someone who's thinking, is it time to sell? And they're wondering about that. What would you tell somebody?
Well, I mean, ultimately with the lack of inventory, I still would say, I even heard 2 weeks ago that if you're thinking about waiting to put your house on the market in the spring, you should get it on now because it's even scarcer. That just means your dollar amount goes up.
Right. So
now is a great time still to sell. I mean, I can't get past that. And you have your pick because, I mean, anymore, I just put a house on yesterday. And I mean, it's in town in the city of Cadillac, and I got 2 offers on it. I'm expecting 3 more.
In 24 hours.
Yeah, in 24 hours. And
outrageous.
What a lot of agents are doing, to benefit their sellers is, put a deadline on it. So let's give the public, 3 days and have us your highest and best offer by such and such time, and that's a cutoff. Because it will never end, for one. But that gives everybody ample time to get in to see the house, which sometimes can be a problem in this market too, is finding a slot to even show your buyer.
Right. I had an agent explain to me, and I wanted to know your thoughts on this, that they advised a seller to have one open house from this time to this time, and it was just a free-for-all.
Yeah.
You want to see the house, come and see it, but don't set up a separate showing.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. I have said that to several clients, too, because ultimately it's tiring. We tell some of our sellers, if you could go away for the weekend.
I'm going to sell your house while you're gone.
And that's how it's been.
No kidding?
Absolutely. So an open house, I think, is a great idea.
Okay.
And, in northern Michigan, open houses really have never been very popular unless you're on the lake. And it's Memorial Day weekend or Labor Day weekend. But I would encourage an open house now, just because it'll get, and quite frankly, we're all busy with life. So getting, a lot of people don't want to go in and, how should I say this? I mean, agents are so busy, too, that they're like, okay, I can get you in this time, but not that time, and just trying to get it to work in everybody's schedule. Well, having a 4-hour window where people can parade through, most times after that, you're done. You don't have to show your house anymore.
Isn't that something?
So you're not continuing this stress of cleaning up every second and taking the dog somewhere and doing all the stuff that sellers have to do to make their house presentable.
Right. And and those that have children, getting them all bundled up and in and out, and where do you take them while the house is being shown? And
Exactly.
it's a lot of work.
Exactly.
Oh gosh, it's just unprecedented times, isn't it?
Well, and then, I think about some of the different things that my agents have come to me with, and, they're holding a stack of 10 offers, and okay, you're writing notes next to each offer on what's the negatives and the positives. And, sometimes people think, well, the market's so good, I'm going to sell it myself, which, you can do. But there's people that have called me after and said, you know what, we can't even take all the phone calls anymore.
Oh, is that right?
It's just so stressful. And then, a lot of times buyers still will have a buyer's agent. Oh. Well, then a seller has nobody looking out for them. So that can be scary too, just with all these things. Whether there's a home inspection in or not, whether the lender has really qualified the buyer, escalation clauses, appraisal gaps, the
language alone, Marianne.
What does all this mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And how do I even choose?
Right.
And
which one's strongest?
Exactly.
Oh, I hadn't even thought of it that way, but it would be a barrage of offers would be overwhelming, and setting up showings and taking the calls. And do sellers even need to market their homes anymore?
Very little. Let's get it on the internet. And yep. It is a very crazy time. And I think in 24 years, I feel like I've been through the roller coaster of real estate back and forth. But, for me, this has really been a new market.
Mm-hmm. And there's no end in sight. You said we had you on the show over a year ago, I believe, in the fall. And at that time, I think ReMax, the umbrella company, was forecasting at least 2 years of this, I think is what you mentioned. And here we are. Is it going to be possibly another 2 years of a strong seller's market?
It very well could be. I also have been a person that have handled government-owned properties and repossessions over the course of the last 10 years. Well, maybe I forget. Time goes by fast. It's probably been longer than that. But I look at very little of that coming back. And, there's a few out there, but, I can remember the time when I had 60 HUD listings at one time, plus, regular sellers, I'll say. And, I look at I'll call in my queue, where somebody contacts me and says, will you check this property to see if it's occupied? And, most of them are right now. But banks have worked with people more than ever due to, of course, the pandemic. And
to keep them in the house, to do a workout situation. Yep. Okay.
Even Fannie Mae, which is typically one of the big ones for foreclosures, they've been doing some new things. They have rented back to the people that technically lost the home. And they're also repairing homes before they put them back on the market, which I will tell you is not easy either because of the lack of contractors right now.
If someone was considering buying a home, let's say it's a first-time home buyer or someone getting ready to go to the next level with housing, and they're deciding, are they going to buy an existing home or they're going to build? What should they be thinking about?
Well, I've always been one that recommends pricing the cost.
Absolutely. And
I think it all sounds really good. As somebody that's built several homes too, you can easily get in over your head over that.
Right.
I'm not saying don't do it, but you really need to lay out everything first. Not only having a nice cushion miscellaneous category, but you have to plan in for some of these changing costs.
Right.
Because they have changed rapidly. And not just that, but even getting materials. This has been a scary time for some people that are building because they're waiting 4 to 6 months for certain products.
Right.
And
The supply chain is broken.
Yeah. It's been very tough with that. I was talking to a couple that actually has been building a house over by McBain, and that's been one of their things. They actually now got permission to move in the house, but there are some big items yet not in their home, and it's has to do with the supply chain being broke.
You know, and when you talk to these general contractors, they'll tell you too. It's supplies and trusses, cabinets, plumbing, but also workers.
Yes.
You're hearing the same thing.
Very much so. I mean, I don't want to say nobody wants to work, but I am hearing that. I am hearing that with almost everything. But I don't know. I want to blame everything on the pandemic. And it probably isn't all the pandemic's fault, but I do feel like that did change a lot of our environment. And,
absolutely.
I also know a lot of people that retired in the last year and a half that wasn't planning to. But
okay.
Whether, some of it is so much was getting put on them because they were working.
Right.
They were doing more hours because of the lack of other workers.
Sure.
And, I think they just burn out. They said, okay, I might do this early retirement thing.
Right. I've seen it too. I have. And some folks, I have a girlfriend that couldn't go into work, and she was very much a hands-on type employee, and she decided to use that time to get her degree online. I have a contractor friend who, just like you guys, you couldn't show homes, builders couldn't build, as you know.
Right.
He'd been promising his wife a remodeled kitchen for, pretty much their entire marriage. And it is.
A builder's house is last.
That's right, exactly. It's like a plumber with a leaky faucet.
Yep.
And he finished their kitchen. And I said, good for you. But other folks thought, well, maybe it's just time to, just coast a little bit. And so I would say the message needs to be now all hands on deck, because companies need workers. I've got a general contractor I do a lot of business with, and he told me last week he could double his crew today and still not have enough guys. Wow. He could add 7 people to his crew right now, and he'd still be running short. And so what's happening is folks are saying to me, I'm having a hard time getting calls back. I'm looking for someone to bid my drawings. And okay, you're hearing that
I'm
too?
hearing that same thing. Yep.
Okay, so if someone's deciding can I find someone or should I build, what you're saying is go get your bids, find your drawings, do
the full homework, because there's just so much involved into, down from the blueprints to going to the lumber yard to, your contractors. And you can feel like when you're building a house anyway, there's so many different people involved.
Yeah.
You've got your well driller, and you've got your excavator, and, your general contractor, but then electrical, plumbing, all those different facets. Mm-hmm. And so, you not only got to fit into their schedule, but if they have a lack of workers, that's going to put you so far out.
Right.
It can be very discouraging. And then how long? Funny story for Daryl and I is we sold our existing house to our son and daughter-in-law, as you know, and we lived in a fifth wheel for, let's see, 3-4 months.
Okay, and, the irony.
Yeah, just, word of the wise, how long do you want to stay in a fifth wheel? And some people have some great, things they can work out, stay with family or whatever. But, really count your cost before you go down that road.
And you're right. Where are you going to live while it's being built? Do you really want to have 2 house payments?
That's the other thing. Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people can't do that, but, do your homework.
Okay. So for somebody then that has a home to sell, they're out there shopping, what's the appetite from a seller's perspective with sale of home contingencies?
Well, that's a good point too, because I hate to do it, but I have encouraged many of my clients to go ahead and get theirs on the market, see if there's somewhere they can locate to either rent or stay. Mm-hmm. Because if a seller's looking at multiple offers, as their agent, I'm going to say, let's look at the lease risk. And when somebody has a home sale contingency, we know how fast they're selling. So in a way, okay, it's not that big of a deal, but it is a big deal when it is among 10 other offers that don't have it.
Sure.
So you start Xing out, okay, you've got some people that are waiving home inspections. We don't necessarily advise that. But when somebody comes to you and says, what can I do to get this house? We have to say, well, this is what the seller's looking for. They're not looking for a home sale contingency. They're hoping you don't do an inspection. Well, they're hoping you have all cash. But, a sad thing is they're not looking at people that are purchasing with government loans if they have multiple offers.
It might take a little longer. Is that the issue?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think there's, the house has to be in, tip-top shape if you're talking about FHA or rural development in a lot of cases. VA. So, it's kind of sad because some of those people, they're missing out right now.
Right.
Because
and
sellers are looking for the least risk.
I understand. Right. I will say with those three products that you talked about, FHA, VA, RD, the rate is really good on them. And I think those loans can still get closed in a timely fashion. And I think the reason why the appraiser has to be certified to write those specific types of appraisers is because in many cases, the borrower doesn't have a lot of cash reserves. And so they're able to use those programs to come in. For example, rural development is 0 down, FHA 3.5% down. That borrower might not have a reserve fund for a roof repair or a broken furnace or to replace broken windows or missing siding. And so I think that's why sometimes we see those extra layers of let's protect the buyer beware, because after closing, what if something goes sideways with the house?
Sure.
Does the buyer have the capability to, to make those repairs? So
and they're wonderful products because they help people that they make their payments on time, they're making good money. They're doing what they're supposed to be. They just don't have that big cash reserve.
Yes.
The hard thing is what, one thing a seller will look at is, they may get an offer. The house is listed at $100,000 and they'll get an offer for $115,000
right.
from an FHA borrower or RD buyer, rural development. And the seller then is going to look at, well, is the house going to appraise?
Right.
So, if it doesn't, they don't have any way to make up the difference. So that sometimes makes them more risky.
I understand. When we talk about renting versus buying, we mentioned this before we started the show, it's very possible to own a home with rates still low. Historically, 8% is a good rate. It's just for so long, they've been so low, right?
For sure, yeah.
So can you talk about, let's say, somebody who needs a 3-bedroom, 1.5-bath rental? What's the market commanding in rent versus maybe what they could get into for a house payment?
Oh, well, we're seeing, depending on what the rental is, but, we get people that come in the office almost every day asking if we handle rentals, and it's very rare that we actually do because we can't really make anything off those.
Right.
But they're saying $1,200 to $1,500 they're willing to pay.
No kidding.
We see a lot $800-900.
Wow.
So
that's a nice house.
That's a nice house. Yeah.
I think that's important for folks to know too, because if you're paying rent, people worry about interest rates, but think about what the interest rate is on rent. It's 100% because you're not getting any equity.
Well, yeah, and I would even encourage people that maybe you have to rent right now, but
sure.
Talk to a real estate agent, talk to a lender about what you can do for in the future.
Right.
I think most people don't want to permanently be a renter.
No.
It's the American dream
It
to
is.
own your own home. And, I think that's definitely something that if you talk to the right people, you could work towards that over, a year or two. So, yeah, I would encourage renters to reach out to some people to check into that.
Mm-hmm. Now you're speaking my language, Marianne, because when they're renting, I like to talk to them and say, what are we going to do to get ready for home ownership? And one thing I need to tell folks that are renting is don't be late on your rent.
Yep.
Because an underwriter, may ask for a verification of rent from the borrower, and we're going to communicate directly with the landlord in that
Sure.
instance to say, because statistics will show you, data will prove that people who make their rent payment on time, they make their house payment on time.
Yeah, for sure.
Sure
Yep,
they do.
I've heard that.
It all makes sense. Another thing, as you and I said, we've both been in this business for a long time, that I'm seeing is I've had customers that have owned lots of rentals over the years. And two in particular that I can think of in 2021, older guys, they're like, you know what? I'm selling my rentals, right? Can you talk about that?
Oh, yeah, sure. And we have actually seen several of them.
Sure.
Because I hate to say it, but they've come out smelling like a rose.
They're getting a fortune for those rentals.
Actually, it's good for them, and not only that, it's good for the market too.
Right.
Because we need some of these landlords to do some of that,
Right.
and notoriously, rentals, they need a little work.
Yes.
But right now, a lot of these landlords, they know that, they can fix things enough where they can get these homes to qualify for, mortgages, and then people aren't homeless.
Right.
I mean, quite honestly, whatever we can do to get some homes on the market, I would encourage any landlords that have multiple properties, now is the time to do it.
Yes.
I mean, we hope it's going to continue, and I'm sure it probably will for a little while because of this low inventory, but we don't know. What comes up must always come down.
I think so too. It's funny because I have a feeling that if someone called you and said, Marianne, when's a good time to sell my home? You'd say,
Now.
Now, and I have a longtime customer who just rented for years and years and years, and was gonna buy the house, and he was gonna get around to it, and just we all get comfortable, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I got the 911 call. He's like, "Hey, this guy's gonna put a for sale sign in the yard. Get me financed," and we did.
Oh, sure.
We
Yeah.
did. But
Yeah.
it's forcing us to all take inventory. Those of us that are homeowners, what's that home worth? And is this the forever home, right?
For
How
sure.
much home do we need? In your instance, you built the perfect home for you guys, But I think homeowners need to talk to realtors about what their asset is worth, because for most Americans, their home is the most valuable thing they'll ever own.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I remember, obviously when we built, we said we love our home. And I mean, somebody would have to offer us X amount before, we would even consider selling. We have had to raise that.
Well, that's a good problem to have. That's a good problem to have.
Absolutely.
So that number went up, huh?
I mean, obviously, if you get the perfect spot, you can't replace that.
Right.
But it has really caused a lot of people to think, even people that maybe were in a situation where they had a bigger home and they really wanted to downsize. I mean, I have had a couple people say, well, we just want to build something small. Well, then it worked out. I mean, it wasn't so much for them to take care of. They made really well off, the sale of their home, and now they're doing a small construction. So it is important to talk to the people that are out there doing it every day. The lenders and the real estate agents, because they can give you some insight, even for people now that are wanting to maybe buy something and flip it. That's still going on.
That's something.
And yeah, they're paying more, but their return is still coming back okay if they're listening to the valuable information on what to put into a house for that flip.
Absolutely.
So I sometimes, the buyer, the flipper will say, has some great potential and great ideas about what to do, but talk to the experts on what's being looked for and what's going to give you the most, back for your buck.
You gave me an interesting number, and I'm wondering if you can share that with our listeners. the value in 1 year of.
Sure.
Can you share that?
Well, and I mean, I thought I was surprised when I read it, but then the more I thought about it, I wasn't surprised. But from February of last year to February of this year, our average sale price in our own area has raised $50,000. So if you bought a house last February, you've got $50,000 in equity.
Isn't that something?
And again, in 24 years, I've never seen that.
Oh gosh, no.
I've never seen that.
And you said we meet the national average here in
absolutely.
our little rural pocket. You know?
Yep, across the United States. That is what, they're just saying you've got 50 grand in equity. I think it was like 55,300 to be exact, but that's an incredible number. And I just look back at, homes that I have seen. Matter of fact, I had clients that bought and closed on a house this past January, and the previous year, the people they bought it from, they had bought it in April.
Okay.
And, here this house is coming back on the market, was only like within, 7 months or whatever when it hit the market again. And my people are like, number one, they're like, well, what's wrong with this house? Because why are they selling?
And they just bought it.
And we've actually had that numerous times too. And I'll just tell you real quick, the reason for that is sometimes people needed a house so bad, they settled on a house that came on the market because they had to have somewhere to live.
Right.
And then something else came on the market and they're like, man, if we can get that, we're going to put ours back on. So we have seen that a little bit, but we've also seen people moving out of the area completely. And two recent ones, this one in particular, the people got a job in Tennessee.
Okay.
So they were only there like 6 months. And the question my buyer says is, well, they're asking like $40,000 more in 6-7 month period. Is it going to appraise? And it did
because there's that national number.
Yeah, and because there were, since that period of time, there were other comps then that supported that.
Right. You just said that, the magical word comp. And I think it's important for folks to know that when an appraiser goes out to a house, he is looking at what else like that house has sold in the last 12 months. And as we know, the last 12 months, we've seen all-time highs.
One of the things that has affected the appraisers being able to come up is, you remember how we talked about those appraisal gaps?
Right.
So somebody's buying a house and it didn't appraise for that sale price, but that buyer had the cash to fill in the gap between that appraisal and the purchase price.
So now it's a comp, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Now it's a comp for the next one. So, that's again, seeing that raise.
Exactly. Wow. We've never seen anything like it, have we, Marianne?
Nope. When people ask, like I say, that word crazy has popped around a lot lately.
It has. Your agents, your firm, you're a leader. What did it take? And I won't make you go all the way back, but you emerged as a phoenix. Can you tell us what it took to get you where you're at in terms? You guys are on top.
Well, I have to start as for a broker, I have to say you have to care about the agents.
Okay.
Your agents are your number one client, for a broker. And when you teach them that you care and you want them to do the best job, it's just kind of a reversal happens.
I see.
And that was always very important, to us when we opened our ReMax was, we want successful agents. And if we encourage them and treat them, right, they pass that on to their clients. And you have this, rotating thing that happens. You get repeat customers and, then you attract more agents. And, I think we have 20 right now, and which is a good number for our area. And it's very important for us to do it right. And I've always had the open door policy. My people know that, they can call me, they can text me, they can come in my office and get help.
Is there anything you haven't seen? They're teeing up all kinds of scenarios.
Well, I think in this business, and you probably know this too, it feels like we're still always learning.
Oh, gosh, yes.
But yeah, we've seen a lot of interesting things over the years. And, I think maintaining a professionalism, Oh, we definitely need to do that because we know that no matter what industry you're in, there's some that aren't. But that needs to be, top priority is taking care of those customers. And for me particularly, I'd like to take care of my agents.
That's awesome. You have a weekly training, you said.
Yes, we do. And you'd mentioned different things that have come to you from agents outside my office. And, right away I'm like, oh, well, if they would have been at my training, we could have, took care of that hurdle for them. I mean, training in our industry is constant.
Yes.
I mean, we already look at how technology changes all the time. But, the industry changes.
Absolutely. And you got to keep up with it.
You sure do.
Wow. Thank you so much for your time, folks. She's a human dynamo, Marianne Quist. She is the broker owner of ReMax Central in Cadillac and surrounding areas. She's all over the place. Wexford, Osceola, Missaukee counties. Thank you so much for your time, your wisdom, your insight today.
Well, thanks for having me, Katy. I loved it.
All right. Thank you.